Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you. Good morning. Best wishes to all of us. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, and all greetings of kindness.
Yang terhormat, Ibu Dr. AP Triyuningsi MSI, selaku Ketua Departemen Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Diponegoro. Yang terhormat, Bapak Dr. Hardi Warsono MPP, selaku Dekan Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Diponegoro. Yang saya hormati, para narasumber sekalian, antara lain, Ibu Dr. Sunil Hongset dari Universitas Burapa, Thailand, Bapak Profesor Dr. Fuad Matsom dari Universitas Sultan Zainal Abidin, Bapak Hairul Nizam Ismail dari Universitas Teknologi Malaysia, yang saya hormati, Bapak Dr. Agus Ari Subowo MA selaku moderator, dan tak lupa peserta webinar yang pada pagi hari ini berbahagia.
The Honorable Mrs. Dr. Tri Apayuningsi, MSc, as the head of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences at Diponegoro University, and also the coordinator of this webinar. The Honorable Mr. Dr. Hadi Warsono, MPP, as the Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences at Diponegoro University. It is now my pleasure to introduce our honorable speaker guest, Mrs. Dr. Suni Hongwiset from Burapa University, Thailand, Mr. Professor Dr. Fuad Matsom, University, Zainal Abidin, Malaysia, Mr. Dr. Hairul Nizam Ismail from University Teknologi Malaysia. To whom I respect Mr. Dr. Andes Adi Subowo, MA, as the moderator, and also distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, who are delighted to take part in this webinar this morning.
Alhamdulillah, puji syukur kita panjatkan karena berkat rahmatnya, kita masih bisa berkumpul untuk sama-sama menimba ilmu dari para narasumber yang luar biasa ini, meski harus dilaksanakan secara online. Semoga kita tetap sehat selalu.
Alhamdulillah, let's offer the expression of gratitude to Allah due to His favor, charity, and grace, so we could carry out this academic webinar with all good speaker guests. May Allah protect us and bless us with healthy as well.
Webinar World Class Universitas ini mengusung tema Manajemen Pariwisata dalam Periode Pandemi, Perspektif Internasional. Saya Indina Arifat dan rekan saya, Risha Fesya, selaku pembawa acara akan membacakan susunan acara sebagai berikut. Yang pertama pembukaan, yang kedua menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya, yang ketiga opening speech, yang keempat sambutan dari Bapak Dr. Hardi Warsono MPP, yang kelima pemaparan materi oleh panelis, yang keenam sesi tanya jawab, yang ketujuh penutup.
Besides, in this good occasion, the webinar carries on a theme, the tourism management in the pandemic period on international perspective. Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, hereby I, Aisha Kishan, as the Master of Ceremony, along with my partner, Idina Aliba, will guide this webinar. Before starting our agenda this morning, let us explain the agenda of this seminar. The first agenda is the opening. The second one is singing the national anthem Indonesia Raya. And the third one is introducing speech that will be delivered by Mrs. Dr. Abdul Triyuningsi MSc. And the fourth one is the opening speech that will be delivered by Mr. Dr. Hadi Warsono MPP. And the fifth one is the core event. And the sixth one is the Q&A section. And last but not least, the closing of this event.
Memasuki agenda selanjutnya, yaitu menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya. Para hadirin dimohon berdiri.
The second event that is singing the national anthem Indonesia Raya. So ladies and gentlemen, please stand up.
Selanjutnya, sambutan dari Ibu Dr. AP Triyuningsi MSI. Disilakan.
The next agenda is the introducing speech. The introducing speech will be delivered by Dr. Ape Triyuningsi MSc. To Dr. Ape Triyuningsi MSc, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Salam sehat to all of us. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Diponegoro, speakers, lecturers, students from undergraduate, master, and postgraduate, and all participants who were present online this morning. I do not forget to say thank you for the cooperation to Mr. Dr. Slamet Rosadi and Teku Afrisal, PhD, who have supported this activity behind the screen actors. I and some friends took the initiative to hold a webinar about tourism management in pandemic period, international perspective. As an effort to think about how the condition of our tourism and the world and how it impact the economy of our country and the world, especially as Indonesia. Therefore, we hope that with this activity, we can broaden our knowledge about tourism and the impact of COVID-19 and how management in hand. That is, the tourism sector has had a very bad impact due to the corona COVID-19 virus pandemic. The existence of social restriction to the regional currency has made tourism industry plans by these vendors. This is agreed by the United Nations World Tourism Organization, which estimates that 96% of all holiday destination is and the world cannot be visited during the coronavirus pandemic. UNWTO Secretary General Europe Polikashvi called for a draft to end restriction and guarantee immediately. This crisis has shown us the power of solidarity across borders. Kind words alone will not save millions of jobs in the tourism sector that are a danger of being lost. UNWTO appealed to countries to provide support to the tourism sector so it can open up way of rebuilding the economy. We will get knowledge from morning to afternoon activities today. Hope it is useful. Okay, I return to the MC. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Terima kasih kepada Ibu Dr. AP Triyuningsi MSI atas sambutannya. Selanjutnya opening speech. Opening speech akan disampaikan oleh Bapak Dr. Hardi Warsono MPT. Disilakan.
Baik, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Next agenda is the opening speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please, Kesa, lebih gantinya.
The next agenda is Japanese speech. Japanese speech will be delivered by Dr. Hadi Warsono MTP. To Dr. Hadi Warsono MTP, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Salam kebajikan buat kita semuanya. Honorable Manager of the Department of Public Administration, Dr. Triyuningsi MSI, Head of Department, Dr. Maisara MSI, Head of Study Program of Public Administration, Mr. Amni Zarkasi Rahman, Secretary of Study Program of Public Administration. Greeting to all us who I respect lecture of Faculty of Social Political Science, especially lecturer of Public Administration Department, student and all participants. There are 19 participants joined in this webinar today. And who I respect outstanding speaker. First, Dr. Suni Hong Wo said, I'm sorry, I don't know well. From Burapa University, Thailand. Number two, Professor Dr. Ahmad Wat Matson from Sultan Zainal Abidin University, Malaysia. Number three, Mr. Hairul Isam Ismail from Technology Malaysia University. And the moderator, Papa Ari Subowo. First of all, let us praise and thanks toward the presence of God, because on this day we can gather in international webinar. Semoga kita diberikan kesehatan. Welcome to the international webinar with the title of Tourism Management in Pandemic Period, International Perspective. We know that Indonesia is a large archipelago that has a lot of cultures. This condition has implications for diversity in various destinations. Tourism. The essence of tourism is diversity traveling itself. The COVID-19 pandemic has an impact on all industry in Indonesia and even the world, including the tourism industry. The impact of COVID-19 on tourism is very much because the tourism industry in Indonesia has linked with other industries, namely hospitality, transportation, micro, small, and medium enterprises, especially those that produce culinary, restaurant, travel agent, and tour guides. The value of loss due to COVID-19, of course, when assessed in rupiah and internationally, is very large. However, we should not only count and examine the impact, but concrete steps are needed to save the industry that is the backbone of this many people in Indonesia, and maybe in Malaysia too. Yeah. In the operation management system in the tourism industry, it is necessary to pay attention to several important elements, namely input, process, output, and outcome too. Ladies and gentlemen, in the operation management system in industry tourism, it is necessary to pay attention to several important input, like I say that. To obtain the optional outcome, of course, it must be supported by the implementation of good management with a total quality management approach. Yeah. We are lucky today to get material from an extraordinary speakers. Thank you to the head of Public Administration Department, the entire committee, and all the speakers. Please the participant absorb knowledge as much as possible from the speakers. Hopefully later this international webinar will benefit us all. In closing, I thank you for all of us. Akhirnya dengan mengucapkan by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, international webinar dengan judul Tourism Management in Pandemic Periods, International Perspective. Dengan ini saya nyatakan secara resmi dibuka. Salam sehat. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih kepada Bapak Dr. Hardi Warsono MCP atas sambutannya. Selanjutnya memasuki acara inti, yaitu pemaparan materi oleh panelis sekaligus diskusi dan tanya jawab, yang dipandu secara langsung oleh Bapak Dr. Andes Ari Subowo MA, selaku moderator. Kepada beliau, disilakan.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is the main event in which the presentation of material will be delivered by the panelists as well. Along with it, the discussions, questions and answers will be delivered and guided directly by Mr. Dr. Andes Arisubowo, MA as the moderator. To Mr. Dr. Andes Arisubowo, MA, the floor is yours.
Pak Ari belum ada suaranya. Mohon maaf Pak Ari Subowo, masih di mute. Dan saya sekaligus mohon diri ya, ada kuliah pada pagi hari ini. Mohon izin. Speakernya Pak Ari Subowo masih mute.
Again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to the honor, the Dean of Faculty of Public Administration, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Dr. Hardi Warsono, Dean of the Public Administration, Ibu Dr. Tri Yuniningse, Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad Matsum, and also Dr. Suni Hong Lizet, and also Professor Dr. Khairul Nizam Ismail, the College of Public Administration Department, also the student. Welcome to the webinar in the program of Tourism Management in the Pandemic Period is an international period. This theme is quite interesting, especially in the pandemic period, because as it concerns that this tourism management is a powerful impact on the economic, social, and also cultural. But however, in the pandemic periods, this tourism management have a great obstacle, because in the pandemic period obstacle, everyone limited the contact on the economic, social, and also cultural. So today webinar will be give a kind of knowledge on the international perspective, how the manage the tourism in the pandemic periods. This welcoming lecture will be divided into 3 sessions. First session is overview tourism in Thailand by Dr. Suni Hongwiset, and the second session will be talk about the resilience and recovery of small island community as a case study in the Perhentian Island by Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad Mason. And the second last session will be talking about the tourism management in the pandemic period by Professor Dr. Khairul Nizam Ismail. Now, we can now begin in the first session. Will be given by Dr. Suni Hong Lizet from Barupa University of Thailand. Will be explain and overview the tourism in Thailand. For Dr. Suni, I think you have time to explain, explore, and how the OFI view the tourism of Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
Okay. And today, thank you so much for invite me for present about in Thailand, and I think that in the world was about the pandemic from COVID-19, right? I'm sorry for about the presentation, and I can open. I can open the slide presentation.
Excuse me, Dr. Suni, you will present with your PPT or will be
PDF or PPT together, yeah.
You will show by yourself?
I cannot, I don't know first about the sharing in the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will, our team will be show this PDF.
Okay. I can share from my computer or.
Okay. You can share on your own computer.
Okay, now I open and you can see. I don't know first about the sharing.
Not yet, not yet.
Oh, okay, cannot because I think that from the host, right? Mm-hmm.
Can I help you in share this PDF from the host? Okay.
Okay.
This is okay for you?
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. No worries. No worries.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I see. I'm not sure that first about the class, the lecture, the bachelor degree, like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. First about the lecturer, student, bachelor degree program of public administration, faculty of social and political science, Universitas Diponegoro, from Budapest University, faculty of management and tourism. First of all, I would like to the topic for the pandemic period, international tourism management and public policy under coronavirus infectious perspective from Thailand. And today I would like to show about the online, the outline for presentation today. Okay, next slide. Okay, outline today, and okay, first slide. Okay, thank you. I would like to show about the outline today for the scope of the pandemic from Thailand and tourism in Thailand pre-COVID-19 pandemic, public health responses like relation to the pandemic, legislative measures, economic impact and response, social impacts and environmental impacts, And I would like to show about the information public policy in Thailand for the measurement, the policy choices. Because I think that the faculty social and political science would like to know, and because to learn about this another country, right? Service delivery, response, macro fiscal response, conclusion, and recommendations. Okay, next. First of all, I would like to share information from the Thailand for an economy whose several is travel. Thailand's tourism industry is taking a major hit amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So, tourism is major economic contribute to Thailand, with tourists receive accounting for 11.5% of GDP in 2019, more than this dropping from 5.2% in 2009. So, and this show for information like high in tourists from China. And so I think that tourism is one of the most important sectors. And from the research for the tourism of management in Thailand, just like to show that important sector driving the Thai economy, which can generate high income for Thailand together like that. Okay. And next, I would like to show that pre-COVID-19 and like that talk about the tourism is a high income from Thailand, high income from domestic, from international, and this I would like to show that separate for tourism income in year 2019, 3.01 trillion baht, and separate for foreigner tourists 1.93 trillion baht, and Thai tourism 1.08 trillion baht. And I think that unsurprisingly, the tourism industry is a major contributor to the country economy. I would like to show that, and the pre-COVID-19, Thailand like a high income for the tourism and important, the most in Thailand for income. These are compare about the another industry, right? As of the first quarter of 2020, the tourism industry was estimated to directly contribute 5.65% to the gross domestic product or GDP in Thailand. So tourism is also one of Thailand's largest sector of employment, and it ranked 9 in terms of having the highest number of people employed in tourism industry worldwide in 2019. Okay. Next. So I would like to show the pandemic and relate for public health responses. And first measure in Thailand have included limitations on international travel and screenings at the all of travel, as well as quarantine for incoming travelers from the country list in the disease infected zones. I think that now in tourism and health, there are well established interrelationship between travel, tourism, and health. Indeed, the motivations to participate in early forms of tourism relate closely to ideas of being wellness and health, and places or destinations the focus on offering perceived health benefits have long been recognized. So, and all the citizens who have high fever and a high risk of exposure to the COVID-19 are advised to attend hospital screening and or impose self-quarantine. And in Thailand, as a strict monitoring and prevention measure of coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19, important guidelines of the Ministry of Public Health. And third, the MOPH, the Mastery Originatory People-Centered Humanity, has also issued guidelines for medical practices and treatment in relation to COVID-19. And the measure is first of all, prevent measure by providing face masks, providing sufficient alcohol gel or liquid type screening for body temperature, which must not exceed about 37.5 degrees Celsius. And second, exhibition physical distancing measure by prohibiting training, meeting, seminar, and also activity in which a big crowd of people gather in one place. But if necessarily using of an online system or webinar instead like that, okay, or alleging for seating to be one meter apart like that. And third, first about the measure for the health and activity, closing of office like that. I think that like a damage in case if someone is diagnosed with coronavirus infection. For the last one, these are the activity case finding is being conducted in all districts. Like that, since COVID-19 is highly contagious and life-threatening disease, is a situation affecting public order and safety. I repeat again, public order and safety, which requires strict and urgent measures to control and prevent spreading of the disease. A pandemic situation causes boarding of goods like that. Okay, next. This is a topic for us about legislative measures. I think, and I searched first about the topic from the government and the topic and from journal, from the news, from the announcement from the government center. And first of all, emergency decree on public administration in emergency situations. And second, the state of emergency were imposing a curfew limiting group activity like that, a limit from the country, from the district, from the province, from the crowd, from the group, and like related. Venus considered to be high risk because many people gather, and last lockdown measures were also decentralized with provincial governors determining for their own provinces whether to implement lockdown or not. And prior to the declaration of the state of emerging Thai government initiated 14 urgent measures to handle the COVID-19 outbreak. After the declaration of emergency, a series of legislation, notifications, and ministerial regulations in response COVID-19 outbreak in Thailand were adopted and enforced under like a list from these 4 items like that. Okay. Next. Next. Thank you. First about the economic impact and responses, and I think that high risk and high potential, right? In the early phase, in most cases with COVID-19 were related to risks such as taxis, ride driver, bus driver, and people working in shopping malls closed and cannot do transportation, right? And in Thailand, just like to the own the business, own the driver, like you can just to drive yourself, right? And the number of cases gradually increased until mid-March 2020, when a big, until to now, right? A big Thai boxing event causes a massive outbreak in the Bangkok area similarly with another cluster of pub-related cases. I'm sure that these two groups spread the disease further to their families, like the official, right? That friends and various kinds of social contact and form. According to the survey conducted among operators in Thailand tourism industry in the second quarter of 2020, because I think that the official in Thailand shows about the information. 17% of the impact business in Thailand downsizing their employees after the COVID-19 and pandemic, and 70% the hotel business kept their staff even after the COVID-19 and pandemic, and like Pattaya, Chiang Mai, Phuket, Suratani, about a major of the tourist place, right? And the influx of Chinese tourists in Thailand, this is by 94% in March. And first of all, I show for the first for the slide, right? In that same month, the total number of international visitors in Thailand amount to only allow 819,000 for this international visitor. And I would like to share information this because economic relief measure provide loans and funds to support economic and social rehabilitation from COVID-19 impacts. Supporting relief measures include soft loans, debt relief, and special tax measures for SMEs in Thailand and business operators. A fund of 5,000 baht cash given to informal workers for 3 months, and social security funds for formal workers from the measure the government, like that. Okay, next. I would like to show this because I think that the pandemics from Thailand, depending about the social, like social media, in the social, in the like environmental and the realistic. Would like to show that okay, in situations someone don't take mask, cannot inside place. Someone that was COVID-19, like the authors can see the COVID-19 pandemic has impact people income and led to job losses. But when you are outside, when you are caught, when you are like check from the temperature, high temperature, but then in the social, in the group, just to look down or look at the, oh, you look like the COVID-19, you look like the like a spread, like a disease, something like that in the social. And why is COVID-19 causing too much stigma? I would like to say that the stigma association and stigma in the social impact in the Thailand. The level of stigma associated with COVID-19 is based on three main factors. First is a disease that's a new and for which there are still many unknowns. And second, we are often afraid to the unknown. And third, it's easy to associate with that fear with others. And so it's understand that there is confusion, anxiety, and fears among the public. Unfortunately, these factors are also fueling harmful and certifying. What is the impact? Die the people to hide the illness to avoid discrimination and prevent people from seeing health care immediately. And last, discourage them from adopting healthy behaviors. And the last, ethical journalism, in like not in the public, in the social media, and like talk all the time in the office, like that. I think that a journalistic report with overly focuses on individual behaviors and patients' responsibility for having and spreading COVID-19 can increase stigma. People who have the disease, some media outlets have, for example, focus on speculating on the source of COVID-19, trying identify patient zero, and in each country emphasizes effort to find a vaccine and treatment can increase fear and give the impression that we are powerless to halt infections now, like that. So government, citizens, media, key influencers, and communities have an important role to play in preventing and stopping stigma, surrounding people from China and Asia in general. We all need to be intentional and thoughtful when communicating, and social media and other communications platform showing supportive behaviors allow the new coronavirus disease. Okay. Next, for the first of all, some positive impact resulting from the COVID-19 outbreak reduced pollution or traffic, big city like that in Bangkok or the city for the travel, the tourism. So, and color going back. However, there is more plastic pollution from an increase of takeaway and delivery food package, and more infectious waste, particularly surgical masks. And like this from the open, the source of the Open Development Thailand to 2021, Thailand Development Institute show about the impact from the pandemic COVID-19 and relate environmental up to 60% from based on, right? Because of the pandemic, and I think that are not to plan for the, okay, how to release, how to about the destroy the terjumas or plastic for the pollution, everything from the pandemic, right? Okay. Next. I think that not now because today in the 5 March, right? Because when I sent the information to the 27 February, and now in Thailand and new for the coronavirus disease and new cases 70 up, right? Up from 72, and now today 5 March 79 new cases, right? And damage 19 and death, right? From this 83, and now today, not today and yesterday, 85 people dead from this. And how this situation in Thailand, and I would like to share the big lesson for Thailand as for other countries is that a global crisis of this proportion has to be confronted quickly and firmly from the outset, especially the first hours, and transparency and clear communication from the top in the face to bad news are imperative like that. Okay. And this like a fact sheet, and everyone check up every day because I did like a score and why, and when I check score why up first about the new cases, and why in a days upper, why how to, I don't know first about the situation. Okay, next. And like this in Thailand has been considered COVID-19 success story, having completely held the virus spread, but in December last year and now, a cassette exposed at a seafood center in the central province of Samut Sakhon. Samut Sakhon is the kind of the province in Thailand. And after managing against the odds to keep the coronavirus largely in check for most of the year, Thailand has suddenly found itself challenged by an expanding aspect among migrant workers on the doorstep of Bangkok, the capital. Okay. The measure of Thailand now, and I think that before 3 months and now together, the effective from 22 February 21, the government has adjusted the classification of formerly 5 areas. 5 areas, you can see that, and 5 areas, the color, red color, orange color, yellow and green color for the symbolic of separate or classification 5 areas, right? Two, currently for 4 areas in line with the COVID-19 situation in the country, and like a red color, the like a high potential, right? And Thai China in a Thai application for taking part in a process to help the country stop. This application is provided from government, and like to check up to the check for like a monitor the person or citizen in Thailand and foreigner like that. Application for taking a part a process to help the country stop the spread of COVID-19 by people check in and check out. The more data to government will have to mitigate the spread of the disease. And now another Thai Chana, I call it Thai Chana, and another Mo Chana. Mo Chana is mean like the doctor winner, right? About the internet data that is used, internet data used for machine application, and another Thai Chana, right? Application is now free of charge. The Ministry of Digital Economy and Society announced operators in Thailand to waive data usage charge from user while using the application in order allow everyone because just to like a load for application, everyone to track their locations and help authorities to identify those who have been in close contact with infected people. This is in part the effort by the government to catch the people's burden during the outbreak, right? And I would like to explain for this green first, green, and the surveillance green areas now increase from 35 to 55 province from this. And high surveillance yellow, high surveillance yellow now disease from 17 to 14 provinces. And control orange, this orange area down from 20 to 8 provinces. And the last, white, Samut Sakhar remains the maximum control because dark red area, like a high control, like a monitor, especially like that because this group, high group worker for the immigrant together. Okay, next. Domestic tourism stimulus package, 3 campaign in Thai because the government for the public sector, the public policy would like to share, like a sharing happiness, sharing to the citizens, the population in Thailand. 3 campaigns. First campaign เราไปเที่ยวกัน Thai ปันสุข and กำลังใจ like this, like a cheer up, like a sharing, and like this. เราไปเที่ยวด้วยกัน it mean okay. เราไปเที่ยวกัน package, this package from the government allocate 18 billion baht to fund subsidize for accommodation and restaurants at destinations nationwide. The budget will benefit 24,700 accommodations as budget, and these are total restaurant and related business another 2 billion baht. เที่ยวปันสุขอะไร the sharing the travel, right? Is to fund subsidize for 2 million air tickets aimed at stimulating 2 million domestic trips. The subsidies will cover 40% of the domestic flight fares, but they kept at 1,000 baht per tourist. Tourists must book accommodation reservation under the เราไปเที่ยวกัน package to be eligible or afford the flight subsidize, and this first, and then the second. We travel to the tourists or the Thai tourists more than 3.5 million people have registered from the application of the government related tourism stimulus campaign known as เราเที่ยวด้วยกัน like we travel together. Participants must be Thai nationals with a valid ID card at about 18 or above on the date of registration must choose to travel, eat, and stay in province other than the one they are registered as living in. They must have a smartphone and download the Bao Tang. Bao Tang is like a wallet, right? Wallet application. Okay, next. 5 measures approved by cabinet, and I think that the relate the tourism, economic, and like government handle first about the measures. 5 measures reduce electricity bills among relief measures approved by cabinet, and now like my hometown and my house 2 months, right? Like a condition of budget. Reduce water bills among relief measures approved by cabinet, like 2 months together. Support internet because work from home and the office, like public administration and like a local administration and like a university, but work from home and free internet 3 months, like a condition of budget to the group, right? The half co-payment stream is a project that the government expects to stimulate domestic consumption and boost the economy, like 3,000 baht per head when like a register and load application for follow from the suggestion. Last Thailand เราชนะ like a we-win program which was supposed to hand out subsidized for the need during the pandemic 7,000 baht per head, and this item the Thailand เราชนะ and like last month and take for the use this. Okay. And these policy choices, and we would like to show this because why in a Thai choose this choice, because in the government agencies the studies affect the quality of life, environmental and well-being of communities, and make public hearing for concerned stakeholders in Thai society. And in the well and I think that previous slide, sorry, previous slide. Okay, thank you. And these policy, the choices, public health measures, and the World Health Organization in Thailand stipulate for the pillar first about the management for the choice of the public health and relate to community and relate tourism, economic, relate for everything in Thailand, in the people, the citizen. And pillar first, country level coordination, planning and monitoring. And sent in this, Thailand deliver an effective response enabled by strong health system and decisive leadership based on inclusive technical consultation and advice like that. And second, Pillar 2, least communication and community engagement. There was a clear incident command structure of least communication functions within the Ministry of Public Health at the national level. And Pillar 3, surveillance rapid response teams, case investigation, Thailand conduct regular risk assessment, leading to adjustment in case definition to account for persons working in the travel and tourism industry. And Pillar 4, points of entry and migrant health, Thailand implement early and systematic screening at points of entry. Thailand refugee exhibit comprehensive quarantine procedures. And Pillar 5, national laboratory system, and exhibit a centralized system coordinate procurement, manage inventories, evaluate and document test kit performance, and sufficiently distribute the workload across laboratories. Pillar 6, infection prevention and control in the community and healthcare facility. Thailand implement effective triad and isolation systems for suspect patients. Pillar 7, clinical management. Thailand rapidly developed and frequently update national clinical practice guidelines based on new information. And Pillar 8, and this critical personnel, epidemiologists, laboratory technicians, logisticians, were rapidly deployed to respond to COVID-19 cluster first by this workforce management, right? Pillar 9, last one, there was delays in policy. I would like to show this mentioning essential services during the COVID-19 outbreak, but there was delays in policy initiatives and research for non-COVID-19 issues. Okay, next. And the service delivery response for the overall, there are the modest increase in poverty in 2020, and this which falls back to 2021 urban poverty increased from 4% to 6% in quarter 2 and quarter 3, whereas rural poverty dips from 11% to 9% in quarter 2 and then increased back to 11% in quarter. And we assume that unemployment half and that modest growth resumes in quarter 3 about July, September 2020, but that is combined with the removal of the stimulus payments to households. So urban poverty does not fall and rural poverty actually increased in quarter 3. By the start of 2021, the economic impact on household is much reduced, but there will be still be more unemployment and more need than if the COVID-19 pandemic had not happened. I think so. Okay, next. Sorry. This one is a manufacturer construction, tourism, and also services, whose incomes fall 25%, and for whom poverty increased from 10% to 20% in quarter three, and the fiscal. And I think that relating to the economic and macro fiscal responses for the government to trailing like that. Okay. These conclusions and recommendations to summarize, think of the policies of the local administrative organizations lack of community, and the organizations have little understanding of the objectives and operational guidelines of other organizations. Government regulations as a consent upon tourism's development, more integration on public management, economic, social, cultural, and natural resources, and development for to integrate a relation. And last one, understanding perception makes governance and management easy, because the people will not lightly release the formal institutions, but will be more inclined to obey the village laws and regulations. It will ensure the cooperations of the local communities with the agencies of government, and least conflict between people and the government among themselves. And so the COVID-19 epidemic has created a new way of daily living, like a new normal, resulting from simulations, from situations where many people have to adjust their behavior to that, right? Okay. I think that we need for sharing the information and sharing for. Okay, and if you are interested about the information, in case like to show reference and resources, because I would like to save the time for the another. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to Dr. Hong Viset, who's already explained this management tourism, especially in the Thai. Dr. Hong Viset has already explained to us that by pandemic periods, there is such a great obstacle for most the world in the country, you know. But in this presentation, we have learned about the some policy that's already given by Thai government, such as the limitation of travel, especially in the international travel, and then attend to the hospital, and then try to make a kind of outline on the medical practices, and the attend the case finding. Yeah, this is kind of public health perspective. In the economic perspective, this Congress lecture give it to us about the how the loan and the fund for economic and social rehabilitation, and also in the social aspect, how to reduce the social stigma on the someone who get the coronavirus, and also in the economic environmental aspect, such as government of Thai to try to reduce the plastic pollution. The most important thing that the Hong Viset lecture, especially for us in the public administration department, like actually there is three aspects or three choices of the Thai government, such as first is the public health minister. There is a 9 pillar. First pillar such as country level and the country level coordination, and the second and the risk communication and community engagement, and then third pillar is kind of surveillance, and then 4 is point of entry and migrant health, and the 5 is the national laboratory system, pillar 6 infectious prevention, and the 7 is clinical management, 8 in the operational support of logistic change and workforce, and the 9th pillar is maintain the essential. This is kind of policy choice that we can learn for us, especially in Indonesia. And the second thing, the policy choice is try to increase the service delivery response. There is a great impact on the increase on the service delivery response. And the third policy choice is how the macro fiscal response. There is due to the coronavirus, there is also happen in the unemployment and poverty. I think this is kind of a lecture from Dr. Hongwiset, that if you have any question to Dr. Hongwiset, I think you can write in the chat. Yeah, I can write the chat, but after the 7th session, I will open the question. But if you want to write a question or any clarification to Dr. Hongwiset, you can you can write in the chat first. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hongwiset. This is kind of really contribution lecture for us, for example, especially for a student in the public administration. Now, in the second section, we'll give by Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad Matsun from University of Sultan Zainal Abidin, Malaysia, will be giving a lecture for us about the resilience and recovery of a small island community as a case study of Perhentian Island in Malaysia. Dr. Matsun, I think you have 45 minutes to give a lecture about this topic, and then I think it's the time I give to Dr. Ahmad Fuad Matsun to give a lecture.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Bapak Ari Subowo, the moderator. Is my voice clear, Bapak? Is my voice clear, Bapak?
Okay, thank you. I think it's okay. Dr. Ahmad Fuad? I think the host is already also share the PPT, and I think you can begin this lecture. Thank you.
You can hear my voice, yeah? Bapak boleh dengar suara saya, Bapak? Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you to Faculty of Social and Political Sciences and Faculty of Public Administration from Universitas Diponegoro for inviting me thanks to Bapak Dr. Hadi Warasono and Ibu Dr. Tri, the Deans, for this special occasion. What I will be sharing this afternoon is about resilience and recovery of small island communities, a case study of Perhentian Island, because I'm basically situated in Terengganu, the east coast states of Peninsular Malaysia, which is about 4.5 hours driving from Kuala Lumpur, and the state is very known for its small islands. Okay, just to give a bit on overview about crisis that affected tourism in Southeast Asia. More or less, we can see that in comparison to Indonesia, Malaysia is perceived relatively safe destination. But however, in the last decade, we saw so many crises that happened in Malaysia. And like this COVID-19, it started as a health crisis, but eventually became a global economic crisis. And these were some of the crises that happened in Malaysia in the past. Example, earthquake in Sabah, Sulu invasion that started from the Philippines, floods and prolonged dry season, and very known incident of this, the downing of Malaysia Airlines MH370 and MH17, and also political crisis, because in the past 3 years we noticed that there have been change of the federal government a few times. And in the case of COVID, although it started in China and it spread very quickly to different parts of the world, as of now we notice that the crisis the cases were over 120 million cases, affected more than 220 countries. And in Indonesia, for example, as of now, it's about 1.3 million cases of COVID in Indonesia, as opposed to about a 250,000 in Malaysia. And we noticed that the COVID-19, how it impacted tourism in Southeast Asia. We noticed that it really depends in terms of the size of the country. Like Indonesia, the country is so huge, from Sabang to Merauke, the population is very big, and magnitude and scope of impact depends on how we responded, severity of the case, and duration of lockdown. We have seen since early last year that there have been different phases of lockdown. Initially in Malaysia in March last year, we imposed total lockdown, but suddenly when the case started to reduce, we imposed partial lockdown, and even it continues until today. And how this COVID impacted tourism in Malaysia, and the case started to spread in March last year, when last year Malaysia was supposed to stage Visit Malaysia year, and we were targeting about 30 million tourists, or about 100 billion of ringgit Malaysia in terms of receipt. And January, February, early of the year, we typically recorded high tourist arrival from China, but it was reduced from an average of 2 million tourists every month, but the figure was reduced to only 10,000 in April. So there was a very huge reduction in terms of tourist arrival from 2 million monthly to about 10,000 only in April. And during when COVID-19 started in Malaysia, in Thailand and Indonesia, that was the high time of tourists originating from China, because at that time the Chinese people were celebrating Chinese New Year, and it impacted the SMEs and the informal sector, because 70% of tourism in Malaysia and in fact in Thailand, Indonesia were also composed of the SMEs. And these were actually the estimated revenue loss last year was about 20 billion lost revenue from January to April, and it affected the F&B, accommodation, transportation, and also the retail sector. So it is a lot. So what I'm sharing you today is the island of Perhentian, located northeast of Peninsular Malaysia and situated in South China Sea. And these are the islands. They have two islands. One is the big Perhentian Island and one is a small island. Both of the island, they have different characteristics. They cater to different market. The big island is mostly suitable for family market, whereas the small island suitable for the backpackers, the youngsters, free independent travelers. And due to that, the types of resort also cater to different tourist market. And Perhentian, by CNN, it was rated as among the top 25 best beaches in the world. So this is actually one of the beach stretch that you can see in Perhentian. This is actually the Perhentian Kecil or the small Perhentian. This is actually the nightlife that you can see. Many tourists and the dependency of the local community to tourism is actually very high. This is actually the small communities that inhabited the southern tips of the small island. It's about 2,000 people, very small fishing communities. So one of the issues affecting Perhentian is actually about seasonality, because the island itself is exposed to eastern monsoon season, because it is located in the open sea, facing southeast South China Sea. And due to that, they have a very strong monsoon season, characterized by heavy rain, torrential rain from end of the year until February. So basically, the resort they operate from March until October. It's only about only 8 months of the year. So, but the lockdown, full and partial lockdown, they started in March last year and even continued until 2021, until today. So it really affected the resort operation, the tourism businesses in those islands. And local communities, they were very dependent on tourism. As I mentioned earlier on, is only about 2,000 local people, and they provide direct and indirect tourism product and services, 80% of the local workforce. But they only rely on foreign workers, not so highly dependent on foreign workers. So the local communities previously, they were involved in marine-based activities like fishing and so on. But when the resort, when the island were turned into tourist destination, almost all of them involved in tourism businesses, because they gain more income from tourism as opposed to marine activities. And the issue is when the moment the lockdown started in March until June, there was no tourist arrival in that island. So zero tourists, $0, and some businesses they closed, and due to that, because of this loss of income, some of the operators they utilized their savings. Some of them they sold their jewelries. They involved in micro businesses to survive, and some of them returned to fishing. Some of them also they give a token for local workers in order for them to survive. So these were some of the measures done by the local communities in order to survive. And we found that some foreign tourists they decided to remain in Terengganu, in the island, because it's very quiet, no COVID case at all. and they found that the island is relatively safer than for them to return to their countries. And as the case started to reduce nationwide in Malaysia, Malaysian government imposed the what they call MCO, means the Movement Control Order recovery phase, from June until August. So during that period, domestic tourism was allowed, interstate travel was also allowed, but the problem is that foreign tourists were still not allowed to travel into the country even until today. So that actually gave a huge impact to the operators, because they had only 4 months left to operate, because after October they will be closing their resort due to the monsoon season. And during that time, domestic tourists also, they were they, they were they fear to travel, because during that time we were concerned about safety, because we concerned about we might be contaminated with the disease, and there were new norms, social distancing, new normal, and due to that also travel packages became more expensive than the normal one. So these are um, the issues facing one of the island also of Terengganu, is Pulau Kapas becoming very quiet, and some of the resort operators actually were making huge loss due to the lockdown. So what are the solution to the operators? So we may see that in future that nature-based attraction will be more preferred. Why? Because nature-based attraction are characterized as small scale and special interest, and we no longer prefer to go to mass destination. For example, we do not want to go to a very big theme park, big shopping center where there is a huge crowd, and we have to offer competitive travel packages to attract both for domestic and foreign tourists. Although that foreign tourists are still not allowed to enter Malaysia as of now, the operators may have to have different packages for weekends as well as for weekdays, and public were given 1,000 ringgit income tax relief, uh, and the local people, they had to diversify their local economy, because they cannot rely purely on tourism because of this crisis, and tourism is very prone to crisis. They have to venture into agriculture. They have to revive the traditional economy, the fishery, the fishing activities, and there must be like upskilling program for the local communities, especially involving youth and women. They have to be upskilling, reskilling, enhance quality of service and tourism experience, because only through enhancing the quality of service and tourism experience, we can increase the loyalty of visitors coming to the island. And during this COVID, um, we have to adhere to the new normal for tourism, uh, but this could be opportunities for local communities to abide by the new norms. Travel marketing and destination choice. You have to promote the island as a safe destination. Now, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, we are having bilateral agreement with countries, and we want to promote the green bubble and green safety stamps. And Alhamdulillah, as of February this year, we have already started to have the vaccination in Malaysia, and hopefully, according to the federal government, that by the time we reach 80% of vaccination among the local population in Malaysia, which we expect to be from 5 months from now, and when we already achieve the herd immunity, then we can allow a free travel among the local people. Then only we can allow interstate travel. We can allow foreign travelers to enter Malaysia. And of course, this COVID-19 has also um, promoted digitalization. We have to go online, not only in terms of provision of our services, but also in terms of marketing. So this give time for the operators in Perhentian Island to do some experimentation. So what we can see that this COVID-19 has changed the way we travel. Previously, in Thailand, for example, in Pattaya, in Phuket, in Bali, in Langkawi, those island destinations were characterized as over-tourism destination. We can see thousands of people along the beach, but the COVID-19 has changed the way, um, 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 has changed our behavior. And we see that some destinations have been turned into under tourism, from over tourism into under tourism. And but the good thing is that due to the COVID-19, we have seen that some of the nature-based destination have experienced better quality in terms of the environmental quality. The quality of water is becoming better. And we have seen quality of river, the is marine life also have increased. So because due to less visitation, so it's very important in tourism that we have to manage crisis. So we notice that most of the cases, although whether in Malaysia, Indonesia and Thailand, most of the time when crisis happen, we tend to be reactive. What does it mean by reactive is that we only take action when crisis happen. So in crisis management, it is advised that we have to be proactive. What does it mean by proactive is that we have to, in organizational learning, we have to implement double loop learning. Double loop learning means that we already foresee the crisis and we already take some action. So when we are already prepared, then we can reduce or we can mitigate the impact of the crisis. So what happened? Most of the destination, we only apply single loop learning. Single loop learning, when things happen, when crisis happen, then only we react. So it is better now we do double loop learning because according to studies, the tourism industry is very prone to crisis. Crisis may occur more frequent in future, whether the crisis is natural crisis, whether it is man-made crisis, whether it is political crisis, economic crisis, health crisis, or environmental crisis. It may occur in future more often. So what I can conclude is that crisis can occur anytime, anywhere. Is it unpredictable? As we can see from COVID, we explained from COVID, although it started as a health crisis, and now it became a global economic crisis. And the problem with COVID is that, unlike other crises before, crisis before is very much localized. I gave you example. When Bali bombing happened in 2002 and 2005, the bombing was only confined to Bali and was only confined to Indonesia. But the spread, the impact was not so severe to Malaysia and Thailand, for example. But COVID is different. COVID it impacted the whole world. So not a single country has been excluded from this COVID. So we have to take proactive action. Denial is not an appropriate strategy. As I mentioned earlier on, encourage double loop learning. So as mentioned by Dr. Suni also, when crisis happen, effective communication is very important, because how we disseminate the information to the public. For example, as of now, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, we have received vaccination, and we notice some of the public are very skeptical. Some are very afraid to have the vaccination. They say that maybe the vaccination could have some negative side effect. So I mean, this is the role of media and communication to give the right information. And more often, we can see that media always exaggerate. So the government, we should have some control over the media, because we have to make sure media will disseminate the right information. And of course, in crisis, we have to involve all tourism stakeholders, from federal government, the state government, the local authorities, the local people, the tourism operators, and the general public. And of course, we have to prepare for the next one. So I think Bapak Ari, maybe my presentation is relatively short, but I'm giving a bit of overview about how crisis actually affected tourism in general, and I'm giving a glimpse and how it affected also some of the island destination in Malaysia, of in particular the small islands, because most of small islands in Malaysia, they are very dependent on tourism. So in tourism, the higher the dependency of the people on tourism, which means that and the more impact they feel from the crisis. Just like in Bali, as of now, like Bali recorded negative growth rate, because no foreign tourists are allowed. And I was informed by my colleague in Bali that some of the hotel, not only they closed temporarily, but some of the hotel also they closed permanently their business. So it's also true in Malaysia. We have big hotel to small hotel that permanently close their operation. So I talked to my some of the operators in Periode Island. We noticed that some of the operators, they close their operation until middle of the year, because you see, like even if they open now, next month will be fasting Ramadan, fasting month Ramadan, so it will be quiet again. So it's better for them to open their business after Lebaran, after Idul Fitri. So that's actually the extent of the impact of crisis to small island destination. Thank you, Bapak Ari. Thank you all for listening to my presentation.
Thank you very much to Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad, that's already giving a lecture such of contribution knowledge for us, especially in the how the resilience and the recovery island in the small island. I think this really important for us, you know, especially learning from Malaysia, that crisis can occur anytime and anywhere. So we cannot deny it. I already agree with this point. And so we also take a kind of proactive action, because we cannot just wait this kind of strategy from outside. And then how we should be encouraged also in the double loop learning. But in the public administration perspective, this double loop learning is really important for us to how the governing kind of variable, such as goal, value, belief, and conceptual, should be mixed, and is how to dealing with the crisis. And also, the Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad also explained how we increase the effective communication. So it's mean that also media can exaggerate, so have some control for them. And then also how we involve the all tourism stakeholder to be understood about the crisis. As I think this is valuable knowledge for us. Thank you very much for Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad. That's already give a lecture for us. And after that, maybe any question will be, I will open the question if anyone will have any question on that. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad. The next section will be given to Professor Dr. Hairul Nizam Ismail. We'll talk about the tourism management in the pandemic periods. I think I give time to you, not more than 45 minutes, I think. Yeah, because we have a short time. So I give to Dr. Hairul Nizam to explain the lecture about the tourism management in the pandemic period.
Thank you very much, Pak Ari. Before I start, should I share my slide, or it will be done by the host? I think I share my screen. Is it clear? Oh. Please wait. I think I have to cancel. I think I did wrong. I share a wrong screen. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Department of Public Administration, Faculty of Social and Political Science, University of Diponegoro, for inviting me for these sharing sessions. Okay. My presentation will not take 45 minutes, probably only about 20 minutes. What I try to address here is to trigger some perspective and some question that we in this Southeast region, especially in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, have to discover first. Since the pandemic has disrupted for almost a year, there is no indication where it actually will be end. And many studies, many people claim that they did the studies, and some of them come up with the policy, but we are knowing how it will be end. It's very difficult to say that this kind of study and any policy relevant to the post-recovery plan after pandemic will be successful. So the idea of my presentation is more likely to trigger some of the question with some of the figures. My topic will be more likely on the regional tourist flow in post-pandemic recovery plan. Okay, so this is basically the idea of my presentation, and I would like to, address this issue. I would like to trigger this question, and let's see if we can discuss about this. Okay, when we come into the international tourism, in which our countries, our beloved countries, Malaysians, Indonesia and Thailand, we are very much dependent on tourism. We have to realize this. And tourism become, if not the first sectors in our country, it will become the second one. And a lot of jobs are created based on this industry. So if there is no international movement, people who coming outside from our country, what will be happen to us? I am constantly being in Indonesia at least once a year, doing many activities as a tourist for pariwisata. If there is no tourist flow into our country, our borders are closed. There is no staging point from the nodes of the transportation, such as our airport. So where the number of the tourists are coming. So if there is no tourist flow from this staging point, this means there is no tourist movement in our country. Means that also there is no figure, there is no tourist arrival, except what we claim as a domestic tourists who are moving around our country. So basically, when we're talking about international tourism in Malaysia, Thailand, or Indonesia, there is no tourism at all. So there is some fact and figures here indicate that 90% of international tourist arrival in June 2020 are plugged. There is no movement. Okay, 90% of the number of the tourists in the 2019 is no longer available. So that means only here the figure is 77%, and 70% probably is between January to February. For Malaysia, we have a full blown of lockdown in March. I think it takes Indonesia almost a month after to have the full lockdown. So when we see this in terms of the international flow, we will find in the first half of 2020, between January to June 2020, Asian and the Pacific are probably the most hardest hit. Okay, with 72% fall in terms of the tourist arrival. And Europe is the second one, 60%, as if you can figure out in the slides. And then the Americans, Africa, and Middle East is basically almost half. Okay. For us, in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, we do feel the heat. Okay, this is some figure that can be easily accessed from the internet. Basically, we are in the back into the 1990s, the era where basically tourism begin to spread the wing. The tourists begin. At the time, you will notice that at the time I was only about 18 years old, 20 years old, when basically people do not call tourists or tourism. People they claim themselves as a traveler. People who travel. I am a backpacker. I am people who from this country like to be in your country. There is no such thing as tourism and tourists. But in the 1990s, even in Malaysia, we try to push tourism as a part of increasing the effort for services as a service country, which mostly known for what we mostly claim as a developed country. Basically, the economy are based on the service sectors. So basically, what happened now in 2020 is that we are moving back to what happened in the 1990s, a year before we are focusing on tourism, a year before we see tourism as an industry, a year when there is no much what I call is an international movement because of, for example, there is no budget airlines, there is no cheap services. Okay? So this is what's happening. The number of the tourists reduced, and we do not know what happen. We do not know. We do not have any idea how long it will take to us to get back to the number as in 2019. Okay? So this is a serious thing happening, and then it's affecting us so much. So because we do not know what happened, and then the traveling option remain unpredictable. So what will happen to us? Can we have our country, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia get back the similar volume of tourism arrival before pandemic COVID-19? The number of the 1,600 million to our country, which we lost about 90% or exclaim in the statistic about 75%. Can we have it there? And then if that's not happening, can we rely on only to the domestic tourists, which we know that their spending pattern are less than international tourists. So it will affect our economy for a long term, and it will also affect our way of life, especially those who are dependent, their dependency is high to tourism, which I believe this is what happening in Malaysia, this is what happening in Thailand and also Indonesia. If we're looking at the only islands who are almost 100% dependency to tourism, such as Bali, Langkawi, and let's say Hat Yai in Thailand, I believe 90% of the international tourists are no longer there. And if there is available, most of them are people who are already stayed there before the pandemic. Okay, so the question is that for us, especially when we're making a public policy, can we expect the domestic tourists to be sufficient enough to create a similar volume in terms of the expenses and income to our country, and then to generate back the economy, to make sure that all the physical development that has been developed for tourism is still in place? There is no decline in terms of this all tourism attraction becoming dead places. So this is something that we have to think, not only for 1 year, probably longer. So this is the figure. Okay, this is a quite latest data from UNWTO, United Nations World Tourism Organizations, about how long we will recovery from what we call as a impact of the pandemic. If you see here, only from the net number that we try to cater back, only when we talk about 2024, 2 years or 3 years from now, we only be able to get 45% from the number that we lost in 2020. Okay, this is serious. This means that we only get about 50% from the number previously in 2019. It's a long way to go. The question arises is that if our country is ready for this, our government ready to have a policy to realize this issue, how our policy are able to make sure that we can recover faster than this number, these figures, 41% from 2024. I think this is very important. And this means that any policy that we made for tourism in 2019 or even now is basically no value, because we cannot understand what is happening. Probably we have some light when people say that everyone can get the vaccinations. Everybody become a vaccine tourist later. But how long it will take? In Malaysia, we expect that all will be vaccinated towards the end of 2022. That is only for all of us to get that. With the economic problem that caused by the pandemic, so that people finally will sufficient income to travel back, how long it will take from that since 2002? So we can expect that basically the impact of the pandemic to our economy, how our policies have to change, should look into another 5 years. So that's quite scary for us, especially for us in Southeast Asian region that very much depend on tourism. That's one thing. Another thing that we have to look is what is happening in the tourism attractions. What happened to existing tourism spot, tourism business district. Many of us in planning, in public policy, we call as a tourism zone, cluster or corridor development. Okay. The issue still remain the same. Is it possible for us in Malaysia, Indonesia and Thailand region having similar volume of tourist arrival before pandemic? So that all the physical infrastructure, tourism attraction and services, including the number of hotel, can cope with the demand. At that one time, we tried to project the development of hotels to cater the number of 1,600 million. And now in 2024, we realized that only 50% number of the tourist arrival can fit the number of the hotel available. What will happen to another 50% of the hotel? Okay, what is the who will stay there? Can we encourage domestic tourists to fulfill all this number? We do not know. There is no clear policy. I don't see the policy was clearly highlighted in Malaysia or in Indonesia or even in Thailand. Most of the time we try to cater the problem of how the tour operators or any tourism operators to survive. But we forgot that as long as we do not have the number of tourists who are the people who bringing the money, and how basically their attitude towards doing activity tourism such as traveling and spending, basically we do not have a good policy on that. Okay, so please remember why this is very important. If you see to the facts by the Joint Research Center, the European Commission Science and Knowledge Service in 2022, data from tourism discovered that between 2000 to 2008, on average, every additional 1,000 tourist arrival are associated with 20 additional jobs in the Euro regions. Okay. It means a lot. 100 tourists will provide 20 additional jobs. Or they claim also 10% of tourist arrival will generate an increase of 0.9 of the employment. It's also high, about 1%. Okay, that means the number of tourists, especially those who are from international, bringing the money, a lot of money. Purchase the more higher purchasing power. It's very important for us to know. The same goes to the industry. Reality in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, that we are projecting a lot of what we call as small and medium enterprises to develop, to get this multiplier effect from the tourist arrival. Now, most of this industry are collapsing, what we call it as a small and medium-sized enterprise. Especially those who are very much depend on niche market, such as international tourists. Okay, and surprisingly, that many job in tourism is also for those for the woman, where the agenda of gender equality is very important. The woman should get the job. So tourism provide the platform for the job. And then yet 50% of the job now lost. Because in tourism, by data from WU and WTO say that 50% of the tourism workforce is women. Yeah? And in terms of the simple thing, as a seated restaurant dinner worldwide as of February 23 has been reduced into 52.97%, and this represent mostly from the arrival of international tourists. Okay, this is the problem, because of course with all the procedure, standard operating procedure, we cannot eat in the same number of person in the table. So basically 50% of the number of the volume to these all services such as restaurant also reduce. So we have to think in the next 5 years, we still have to basically have our capacity of the restaurant, hotel, and other services into half compared to what's happening in 2019. So this is all the question that we have to understand and do the forecast. Okay, in terms of the physical development, what real-time data say about the volume of tourists in tourism business district that we are looking at? I tried to figure out from free access sources. And I tried to look at two places, and this is from 2 weeks ago in Chenang Beach, Langkawi, and Kuta Beach, Bali, Indonesia. So if you're looking at this is data from Pantai Chenang, seems that somehow there is activity of sightseeing, eating, shopping, and nightlife happening in this beach. How about the volume? We do not know. So when we do the policy, we try to formulate the policy. I think we need some monitoring system based on this real data, which you can access from Insta site. In this example, you will see the number of them are growing or reducing from phase by phase. So we have to monitoring it from now until, for example, early next year. Is it the number are getting high or reduced? Okay, because people are spending. We have to look. The same goes with Kuta Bali Beach. Seems that there is activity. There's not, they are not dying, but the volume is still in cushions. What is the volume before the pandemic happened? 2019, for example. Is it the same? Probably the heat spot, as can be seen in the screen, is higher than this. So we need to have some monitoring system, and then based on this free access or open sources, we can monitor, and then we will realize whether if we do not allow international tourists coming, and then whether the heat of the spot of this tourist attraction are still remain the same or expanding. So we can later understand whether domestic tourists are sufficient enough or not. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you when we discuss about the number of tourist arrival. And then later, when talking about what next, if everybody has been vaccinated, we are opening our door to tourist arrival, international tourist arrival. Is it will be the same after 5 years? Of course not. The tourist behavior has changed. Whether it will come back into how they basically spending in 2019 is still remain unknown. Okay, what is a tourist behavior and decision making in the new norm, as claimed in this slide? What will they? How they are going to influence the tourist flow? And then for many people in tourism's discipline, asking whether there will be a new emerging tourist typology, as we know, or what we call as a mass tourist, because we have to wear the mask. In Malaysia, if you not wear the mask, you will be compound about 1,000 ringgit Malaysia. It's quite a lot. It's about half of our normal pay salary for many ordinary people in Malaysia. So where is the trend? So this is what basically the literature says and people in the industry says. This is something that has been debated online and also debated among the policy makers. The first thing is that probably that we have to fully understand is that probably before this we do not fully care about visiting friends and relatives. Most of the time it associates with the domestic tourists, people who visit the city to their village, people who moving to meet their friends who basically within their own country. Okay, so this is the type of the tourists that probably will emerge because traveling with the family basically will reduce the interaction with others, stay with family, and safer because less interaction with other people who we do not know. Okay, and then somehow people will say it's a good thing also because now people we have many issues of what we call as a over tourism, the issue of carrying capacity, the issue of limit acceptable change because there are too many tourists in one places. So when pandemic happened, somehow like what Prof. White had said, somehow it's changed into more quality type of tourism. And this is something that we need to, when we're doing the policy, to taking care of because previously we have a problem of over tourism carrying capacities. Now it was open for us to manage that, the issue of overcrowd, over tourism. Okay, and then you will see that many activities such as hiking, basically nature-based, getting popular back. In Malaysia, we will see a lot of people selling their motorcycle to buy the bike, and then buying a bike equivalent to the price of a motorcycle. The price of the bicycle spiked because people beginning to doing activities, especially biking, especially outdoor adventure, we are need to be in the crowd, so they can do it the activity by their own. Okay, this is because the outdoor activity mostly is a less risk to COVID-19 virus to spread. So this is something that we need to rethink if we are depending on the domestic tourists. And then if we want to open our market back to the international tourists, we are looking for this kind of tourists, basically tourists who are maintained in terms of the try to control their private ways of doing things and concerned about the hygiene. So this is all, I mean, when we come into a public policy, I think we have to consider. Okay, this is what we are figures. This is only something that we need to talk. So we're talking about Southeast region. What's happening in Europe, for example, in Paris, people now working as in the slide. People are working with a mask in their face. Seems that they are, I don't know. Probably you can say, I'm not so sure if this picture tells that they have secure their social distance or not. I believe this is most of them is a family and friend, very close friends. And then that's all, I guess. Finally, what I will say that there are so many things still need for us to understand whether in the next, and to claim that we have a plan, a recovery plan, is too early. Okay, we have to project for the next 2 years. I think the next stage will be when everyone has received the vaccination, and the second one then when if the people have the money, sufficient enough money to do all the tourism activities back. Okay, because the loss of the job, and then later and for the next 2 or 3 years, probably we will see whether we can bounce back to the number of volume as previously seen in 2019. So that is all of my presentation, Dr. Aris. So you will not take more than 45 minutes, hopefully. I think less than that. So thank you very much. I hand over this to Dr. Ari. Thank you, Dr. Ari.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Harold. That's already giving information for us. This important question about how, if the tourism management is tourism is not occur, and then what will happen? This is kind of basic question on the management of tourism management. So the question is also about, do we need a kind of policy? Do we need to formulate the policy if the pandemic period we cannot, estimate how will be ended? So every government, especially in the Asia, that's kind of a severe impact, especially on the pandemic. The Asia Pacific is almost 72% in the tourism sector. So this is kind of question that already, that the question, important question for us, especially in the public administration. So we have to kind of formulate the kind of policy how to increase the tourism, because we cannot reject that now mostly government in Asia have a kind of difficulty to, time to resolve the pandemic in the pandemic period. Do we need health policy first, or economic policy at the second? Or we still need the empowering the economic sector, and this while we also try to solve this kind of pandemic by formulate the health policy. This is kind of a basic question for us, especially in the Asia, that's highly impact. We got a highly impact on the pandemic. This one because COVID-19. Thank you very much to Prof. Harold that's already give us the lecture. So the next session is if there are anyone maybe any question to maybe Dr. Hong Lisset, or maybe the question to Professor Ahmad Fuad or also Professor Harold. I open this time to anyone who will ask for the three panelists. Thank you. Okay, I think as one question to Dr. Tuni. The question from policy, especially in Thailand so far, what has been done by the local government? Yes. Okay, I'm so sorry because bad connection in the internet here. We begin with the question section. The first question is to Ms. Suni from Ibu Tri Yuninengse. The first question is about with regard to the specific tourism policy, especially in Thailand. So far, what has been done by the local government and also the public and private sector, media, perhaps university, in order to keep trying tourism activity in Thailand? And the second question, was conveyed that government regulation hindered the tourism development. Are there any examples, example of regulation, especially in the Thailand, with regard to the tourism development?
Thank you for the question for Thailand. And the first question for the local government, right? Actually, for the policy of Thailand, and when I show information, Thailand like drive to policy, and suppose that the local government just to accept from the center of government and support for the tourists in Thailand first for the travel, suppose that they off for traveling in Thailand, and suppose that okay, you are work office announcement for the government like a day off, okay, this week 1 day or 2 day, and period of the day you can day off, and for the tourism management from the authority, just to like cooperate with SME, with entrepreneur in the local, like a resort or hotel, restaurant, first rider, okay, and like a discount for charge, but government support again, and what's about private sector, reban for the SME, reban for the company, and support for about it, and the media or PLAF university in order to keep trying to keep tourism activity going. I don't know first about the meaning for why, and about the okay, I went to the school, went to the university. Now in Thailand, similar in Burma University, online, like work from home, and student 50 or 70% online in home or dorm administration, and the student when go out or everywhere just to loading application more chana, load application Thai chana, like that for about the monitor the travel monitor tourist, and the second question. Now in Thailand, have a center for COVID-19 situation administration, but first about the understanding and perception of the population for like a worst or the level of the worst, right? I mean that okay, clinical worst. Some people like local cannot understand, right? But when have the channel for the group from the population, I mean that okay, we are separate. The local have a community leaders, can use community leaders to sharing about the information, sharing for us about the chance about you are to travel, chance to you can to receive or reservation for, because in Thailand have a tourism community, so many like so many provinces, Thai persons like income from the managed from the community, like a tourist come to the community, can reserve resort or the food in the local, in the Thai government support to this like that. Okay, it's cover. I'm not sure cover. And
I think it's enough. It's enough, Dr. Visit. Thank you very much. I think it's enough. Yeah. And the next question is for Mr. Ahmad Fuad. There is actually three questions about, especially in the tourism management in Malaysia. First is, what is actually the networking itself and the resolve the pandemic, especially in the tourism? How is there any collaboration between actors to solve the pandemic issue? And then the second thing is how the collaboration, is there any collaboration itself especially in Malaysia, how the collaboration to tackle especially the issue of the COVID-19? And then the third question is about how the public respond on the especially for government policy to tackle the coronavirus or this India pandemic. There is actually three questions, Mr. Ahmad Fuad. How about the networking, and then how the collaboration, and how the public respond on this such a policy, especially in the tourism?
Thank you, Bapak Ari. In terms of networking, as I mentioned in my presentation, it involves all stakeholders, the government, from the federal to the state to the local, as well as with the private sector, and also the local communities and the general public. So there have been a lot of consultation meetings with different agencies and ministries to come up with strategies and the right policies to combat this pandemic. And the public has, in general, has been very receptive. But the problem is in Malaysia as of now, the government is given due consideration whether to open up the economies fully, or whether you want to cater to the health requirement. Is better. Is a debate between health consideration as well as economic consideration, and because the COVID-19 now has not reduced to a level that is satisfied by the federal government, and as of now, many tourism businesses, they are not fully operational. The reason being because interstate travel is still not being allowed. Only recently, only last week, that the government has allowed travel within the state. For example, travel within Kuala Lumpur, travel within Selangor, but not to cross a different state. So this actually does not really help the tourism industry, especially the hoteliers, the resort operators. So there have been calls from the operators, especially from tourism stakeholders, to be a bit more lenient. So that's why, as I mentioned earlier on, the government has been very cautious in making their policies, because they have to give due consideration to the health matters as opposed to economic matters. So because we learned from last year's experience, when the government tried to relax this movement of people in Malaysia between Peninsula and Sabah and Sarawak, and we noticed that after the crisis, the cases of COVID was very much contained, reduced to a very minimum level, then suddenly we noticed that there was a surge, a sudden increase of this crisis. So we don't want this to happen again, although there have been like outcry from these operators, for example, asking government try to relax, because they already imposed the right SOPs, stringent health regulation to welcome tourists. But we are still waiting until the right time. So as I mentioned early on, until we achieve 80% of vaccination in the country, which may be around this September, then only interstate travel is allowed, and then only tourists from overseas are allowed to enter the country. So until now, it's still like very minimum, because we have to take care of the health matters rather than economic consideration as of now. I think that it answers the question, Bapak Ari. Bapak Ari tak muted. You are muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmad Fuad. The next question is to Mr. Khairul from the Agustino. The question is, the COVID-19 and the pandemic is very stressful, especially to the world, including Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and other countries. From the impact of greatly effects on the various sectors such as tourism, economic, and social, the policy taken by each country are different in order to deal with the COVID-19. The question is, what are the obstacles for policymakers to implement their policy that so far almost all countries have not been able successfully in the handle the pandemic? Are there any, and also the question is, are there any alternative policy option to restore the tourism sector?
Thank you, Hari and Agus Timbu. I think each country try to adopt and hope what will be happen next. And we not really fully recover, but we basically try to understand what is the real impact of pandemic COVID, and the data is getting better, and how we cope with the instant decision by, let's say, decision on restriction movement are now became more predictable. And finally, probably after a year, the people, us as a citizen, beginning know how to act when the decision making some sort of policy when come into restriction movement. There are also SOP that we can understand now. But when we come into the tourism, that's what I said before, the policy must take full advantage of the capability of our citizen. Of course, our sufficient income for tourism activities are less because of the many people are jobless. But the policy now have to look at the potential of the domestic tourists. Okay, that's what I said at the end of the slide, the presentation slide. We must back to the VFR, okay, visit friend and relative. And all countries must be able to adopt this first. The second one, when it comes into the policy of having international tourists, so that the tourist arrival number will beginning to increase from year to year or month to month. I think probably the policy between each country and some sort of collaboration with each country, for example, in Southeast Asia, must be done. So far there is no. I mean that we do heard about Indonesian initiative to bring back the number of tourists from Malaysia, for example, to go back to Bali. So because it's involved a very short distance, and then probably there is easy for us from government to government discussing about the possibility in opening our boundary. And then later, when we're talking about having what we call as a vaccination passport, allowing people in the Southeast region to travel doing very much activity, including tourism. So between the government, if you want to not only rely on the tourists, we have to begin with this such policy, because we cannot, of course, when many people love their job, the more distant, the less they're able to spend, they're able to afford. Okay, means that you cannot travel to United Kingdom because you just lost your job. But I can travel to Indonesia, which is cheaper than I travel to Europe. The same goes to when I decided to go to Thailand or many others or Philippines. It's cheaper. Cheaper means that 1,000, 2,000 ringgit Malaysia, I still be able to be enjoying myself, doing all the tourism activities in Indonesia. So when it comes to this kind of regional movement, I believe Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand have to work together in doing such policy. Means that we must allow as much as possible in beginning from the next year, when 80% of our population has been vaccinated, we just allow them to travel using this code of vaccinated passport. At least we allow the regional movement first. Okay, it will be much easier for us. Then we can decide what will happen next, because we cannot predict basically for the next 2 or 3 years what is basically the overall impact of pandemic. So hopefully this will answer. Still open for something that we have to ponder with. Okay, when we make a decision of policy. But for me, if you're asking about the obstacle, we can overcome the obstacle because we now know that domestic tourists must play a role to make sure what has been left by the international tourists has been fully addressed. And then the second one, we as a Southeast regions probably very much easier for us to communicate between our government in Southeast Asia. We have the medium, which is ASEAN, to discuss about potential short intra-regional travel between, for example, these three countries. Okay, Dr. Eric, thank you very much. That is my answer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khairul. Or maybe there is audience that will ask directly to the three panelists. Is there anyone? There is? Okay, not yet? Okay. There's no question again? Is it not?
Saya tak muncul satu pertanyaan di belakang ya Pak, nanti ditranslate ya Pak.
Okay. Okay, we still wait for maybe the audience will ask, the question.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, Ibu Yuni will maybe ask to direct it to Mr.
Khairul. Terima kasih. I'm sorry, I'm in Indonesia. Maybe Mr. Aris Bawa translate. Oke, terima kasih kepada Ms. Yuni, Mr. Hamad, Fuad, dan Mr. Khairul. Pertanyaan ini untuk Mr. Khairul berkaitan dengan manajemen pariwisata yang tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Mr. Khairul. Untuk di Malaysia sendiri berkaitan dengan meningkatnya pariwisata yang sifatnya outdoor, ya outdoor, karena kan untuk yang kita menghindari kerumunan, begitu ya, kerumunan. Nah, bagaimana tindakan atau kebijakan pemerintah Malaysia khususnya, apakah memberikan dukungan ataukah kebijakan apa yang diberikan kepada investor atau mereka pemilik dari pariwisata yang sifatnya outdoor? Adakah sesuatu yang spesial untuk semakin meningkatkan pariwisata yang sifatnya outdoor? Mungkin begitu, Mr. Khairul. Terima kasih. Silakan Pak Ari.
Okay, to Mr. Harold. Maybe I want to translate the Kuyuni question.
It's okay.
Is there any?
It's okay, Dr. I can
in
answer.
Malaysia,
I can answer in
kind of lesson
Indonesia as
learned.
well,
Yeah,
if you want.
actually, kind of lesson learned. How about the outdoor tourism in Malaysia? Is there any specific, I mean, intervention, for example, or maybe any specific policy, especially to the industry that have concentration on the tourism? Is there any specific kind of information for us, for example, to understand about how about the outdoor tourism in Malaysia?
Basically, we do have just launched national tourism policy in December 2020. I'm not so sure basically how much this policy respond to what's happening in the past 9 months. It's very weird as well because how can we predict to construct any policy if we do not know what is basically the end of the pandemic. But what aims in this policy, one of them, is to make sure the survival of, if I can interpret the policy, is the survival of what we call as a zone, cluster or tourism corridor. Okay. One interesting in my country, Thailand and Indonesia, we have what we call as basically our country portraying many image of nature tourism. Do you realize that? Many of us, even Malaysia in the 1990s introduced Borneo as a paradise. The same goes with Indonesia. I think most of my activities in Indonesia is related to outdoor. The same goes with Thailand. In this case, our policy should be able to capture back this market. Okay, and then this is good for us too, because those who are involved and very has specific skill on services associated with nature. For example, those who are people able to become the tourist guide, doing all the trekking with special skill of climbing, trekking. All of this is a very good for them. I mean, we can, the policy must first develop on helping all these people, the skill of these people first. And then later we will see when, of course, we will see whether the demand is still, what is the demand? It means that people are into that kind of activities. Are we ready now in terms of the people who are ready to capture all these things, all these people? And this is good for them because now people who decided to travel for outdoor tourism more likely will be in a very small group, or even probably a couple. And then this means that means they are willing to pay more. And when they need to pay more, they require more specific guide of those who are have that skill. It's good for the industry. But our role now, when we try to make the policy, is to try to identify all this type of the supply side, the tourism and the nature, and those who can provide all the services. And this is my opinion. Other than I cannot predict. I cannot predict. As long as far as I know, if we still close our boundary, if our airport is not busy as usual, we will have to focus on the domestic and activities that safer and provide safety when it comes into the issue of pandemic 19. It means that people do not want to be in the mass gathering, overcrowded area. So in this case, the nature tourism provide an alternative, and we have that in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. Okay, I think that's all I can answer for now.
Mungkin satu lagi Pak Andi. Jadi untuk
satu lagi Pak Moderator. Ya. Untuk Miss Suni dan Mr. Fuad maupun Mr. Hairul, nanti ya. Ke depan, insya Allah kalau pandemi sudah berlalu, kita insya Allah berkenan atau bersedia untuk kita bisa kolaborasi kerjasama, baik itu nanti kita di bidang pendidikan, penelitian maupun riset ya, joint riset antar kita, dan kita membuat MOU untuk antar universitas. Mungkin itu yang bisa saya sampaikan. Terima kasih Pak Ari.
Okay, thank you very much Ibu Yuni. As a Bu Tri Uniningsi, as a head of department, will ask the moderator, for example, for Pak Ahmad Funi, Dr. Shuni, and then Mr. Khairul. University of Diponegoro need to, if you don't mind, we can join kind of a joint research, or maybe I'll invite you to give a lecture directly hope that after the pandemic's ended, yeah. So this is kind of hope for us as in a public administration department. So this kind of relation not stop is in this seminar or in this webinar, but we have want to know, kind of more deeper relation, especially in the joint research or something like that. I hope you can accept this kind of invitation for us, So this is yeah. Basically, we also need to give a kind of improve this kind of knowledge or something like that. So I think because there is no direct question, I cannot draw the conclusion in this webinar, but we already agree that especially in the tourism management have a powerful impact on the economic, even social or culture, So as Mr. Ahmad Fuad said that we cannot reject it. This is crisis, and we have to realize, and then so. And also, Mr. Khalid said that we have to project it. We have to specific kind of policy how to improve the management, tourism management. For example, we have to project in 2024, for example, how many percent we get, tourism, international tourism, because especially in Indonesia itself, tourism is play important role in the economic development. Yeah, so we cannot reject this kind of tourism management. So tourism management as the kind of science play an important role, especially in the public administration, how to formulate the policy itself. For formulating the policy, we need kind of data, and we have to collect data, and then we have to project the data, and then what can be happen, kind of scenario policy that we have to, make it. Thank you very much to the panelists here, especially for Professor Dr. Ahmad Fuad Matsun. Thank you very much for this contribution, and also Dr. Suni Hongwiset from Barupa University of Thailand. Thank you very much. Swadikap. Swadikap. And then also Professor Dr. Hairul Nizam Ismail, thank you very much. This is a kind of great contribution to us, especially in the public administration department and the Diponegoro University, that have concentration on the how to improve kind of tourism policies. Okay, thank you very much for all of you, and I give time to the
Pak Ali, kiss me.
The MC.
Pak Ali.
Terima kasih banyak-banyak.
I would like to say that when the global and the country open and like a normally or new normal, I would like to invite every person, speakers, and from the university, blah blah blah, and I would like to honors from the home welcome to Thailand. And for my university, Budapest University, would like to welcome every people to travel Pattaya, Phuket, Chiang Mai, and I think so. You can request, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hong Wizard. I will pleasure. I will be pleasure.
Baik, terima kasih kepada Bapak Dr. Andes Ari Subowo selaku moderator. Alhamdulillah kita telah sampai di penghujung acara. Terima kasih banyak kepada narasumber, moderator, serta para peserta yang telah menyimak acara dari awal sampai akhir. Semoga banyak ilmu yang didapat untuk diaplikasikan dalam kehidupan sehari-hari.
Alhamdulillah, we have arrived at the end of the year. Thank you very much to the speakers, moderators, and participants who have listened to the event from beginning to end. We hope that this event gives a lot of knowledge that will be beneficial to all of us in our daily life.
Saya Ilina Alifah dan rekan saya Aisyah Keisha mewakili panitia yang bertugas undur diri dan menyampaikan mohon maaf atas salah kata, perbuatan, dan kekurangan dalam kegiatan ini. Akhir kata, terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Before we end this webinar, hereby I, as the Master of Ceremony, along with my partner, are sorry if there's any mistakes in bringing in this event. We also apologize for your wrong words and deeds. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terima kasih Bapak semua.
Terima kasih semuanya. Dr. Suni.
Thank you so much.
Pak Hairul, ya, terima kasih semuanya. We with you, come from in Indonesia, Dr. Suni.
Okay, I promise.
Okay. Mr. Hairul, tuh, Mr. Fuad, tuh. We
Ya,
with you,
sama-sama.
come in
Ya,
Semarang,
sama-sama.
okay?
Ibu. Ya, insya Allah ada kelapangan nanti kita jumpa lagi.
Oke.
Oke.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum. Are you